So she was shot 3 times. The other one was an exit, right?
Those restraining orders are just a piece of paper. They don't stop a bullet.
She had endured years of torment, relentless stalking, brutal beatings, and terrifying threats against her grandchildren. When he finally pulled the trigger, she was shot 8 times and left for dead. But she survived.
When you started hearing them argue?
When they was arguing. They've been
arguing all day.
And after fighting through 11 surgeries and months in critical care, she thought justice would finally be served. Instead, the courtroom delivered a verdict that left her, and many others, in disbelief. This was not just another case of domestic violence. This was a calculated, cold-blooded attack that nearly ended Bridget Knighton's life. A trained military veteran, armed and dangerous, ignored every legal boundary meant to protect her.
I repeatedly tried to escape him, but he always found me, often boasting about it.
But what happened in the courtroom would leave Bridget questioning everything. How could someone who almost took her life walk free? And what does that mean for the countless other survivors still fighting to be heard? Bridget Knighton's exact birth date and full personal history have not been made public, but records indicate she was born in the 1980s in Louisville, Kentucky. From a young age, Bridget was surrounded by a family that valued discipline, education, and perseverance. These guiding principles shaped her into a determined woman who excelled both in the classroom and later in the workforce. Her upbringing in a tightly bonded household played a crucial role in her drive to succeed and serve. She began her formal education at Central High School in her hometown, where she stood out as a focused and promising student. Bridget later advanced to the University of Louisville, majoring in political science. Still fueled by a passion for justice and order, she continued her studies in correctional services at Miami-Dade Community College. Her academic pursuits reflected her growing commitment to public safety and community engagement. Bridget's professional background was marked by hard work and responsibility. She took on several important roles across multiple sectors, including serving as a security officer for the Department of Homeland Security and working as a correctional officer for the state of Florida. She also held positions as a collections representative at Florida Power and Light, a DMV license examiner, and a customer service agent at Bell South Telecommunications. Each role demanded precision, dedication, and strength, qualities Bridget demonstrated without fail. Beyond her impressive career, Bridget was deeply committed to her role as a mother and grandmother. Her family was her anchor, and she constantly placed their needs above her own. Whether navigating life's challenges or celebrating its joys, she remained fiercely loyal and protective. To those who knew her personally, Bridget was the heart of her family, someone who inspired love, respect, and admiration. In the early months of 2017, Bridget began a new chapter in her personal life. Hoping to find comfort and stability, she entered a relationship with Gary Blount.
Who's inside the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gio, yeah, do me a favor, put her in the car. Go ahead. Put her in the car.
A man born in 1970. Public information about Blount is scarce. There are no confirmed details about his birthplace, education, or whether he had children. What is known is that he was a truck driver and a former military police officer who had served in Iraq. Trained in firearms and molded by military life, he carried the weight of a complex and disciplined past. Bridget and Gary had been involved in a relationship for a significant period, though they never officially married. To the outside world, it may have seemed like a committed bond, but those closest to the situation would later describe it as deeply toxic and disturbing. What began as a connection filled with hope and the promise of companionship quickly deteriorated into something far more dangerous.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know about him shooting her because I was asleep, but they've been arguing all night, since.
From the beginning, Bridget described the relationship as abusive, defined by control, fear, and unrelenting violence. According to Bridget, the abuse began as early as their first months together in 2017. The violence intensified over time, growing more aggressive and unpredictable. Despite her efforts to protect herself, Gary consistently violated her personal space and disregarded legal boundaries. Bridget filed multiple restraining orders in an attempt to create distance and safety, but Gary ignored them. continuing to stalk, threaten, and intimidate her with alarming persistence. No matter how many times she tried to separate herself from him, or how carefully she planned her moves, Gary always seemed to know where she was. His obsession escalated to terrifying extremes. Bridget revealed that he insisted on sleeping with an AR-15 rifle placed between them in bed, turning even the most intimate spaces into a battleground. She lived under the constant threat of violence, and the emotional pressure became unbearable. Bridget confided that the only reason she remained in the relationship was because of threats he made toward her family. Specifically, she said Gary repeatedly warned that he would harm her grandchildren if she ever tried to leave him. That fear, more than anything else, kept her locked in place. For a woman who had spent her life protecting others and serving her community, the situation was both heartbreaking and paralyzing. Despite the fear that engulfed her daily life, Bridget did not remain passive. She understood the danger she was in and took repeated steps to seek help. As a strong, educated woman, she knew her rights and tried to use every legal avenue available to escape the violence. In early 2021, she obtained a restraining order, hoping it would offer some measure of protection and signal to authorities the severity of her situation. But even with the legal system involved, the nightmare continued. Bridget reported that Gary routinely ignored court mandates, continued to beat her, and refused to stay away. Each violation added to the growing terror she lived with. The threats against her grandchildren hung over her like a weapon, and every attempt she made to break free was met with renewed intimidation. Bridget's story was no longer just one of survival. It was a desperate fight to protect herself and the people she loved most. On May 21, 2021, the cycle of violence that had plagued Bridget Knighton's life reached a terrifying peak. Gary, in blatant violation of yet another restraining order, showed up at Bridget's apartment in Miami Gardens. It was not a single visit. He came and went 3 separate times over the course of the day. Bridget would later say that during one of those visits, he discovered her journal, a private record that likely inflamed his growing anger. Each time he returned, he appeared more enraged and more volatile. By the 3rd visit, Bridget, fearing for her life, had already contacted the police. She said she hoped the sound of approaching sirens would make him flee. Instead, the situation exploded into unimaginable horror. Gary forced his way into the apartment again, this time with deadly intent. Bridget later recounted that he retrieved a Glock 40 and in a chilling moment said, "She called the police on me, I'm going to kill her, then I'll have to kill myself." Each time he pulled the trigger, he spoke. Bridget remembered him saying, "Look what you made me do."
When he pulls out the firearm from his sweatpants, what does he do then? Does he make a statement to you?
Yes.
And what is that statement?
What you want me to do?
As the shots rang out. According to a spokesperson from the Miami Gardens Police Department, officers responded to a call involving a restraining order violation shortly after 4 a.m. They were already en route to the apartment complex in the 3800 block of Northwest 183rd Street when they heard gunfire erupt inside. Looking through a window, they saw Bridget lying motionless, soaked in blood. The scene was chaotic and devastating. Officers rushed inside to find her with multiple gunshot wounds, the apartment echoing with the aftermath of violence. First responders acted quickly. Bridget was airlifted to Jackson Memorial Hospital's Ryder Trauma Center in critical condition. She had been shot 8 times, including in her legs and stomach. Several bullets had to be surgically removed. The extent of her injuries was so severe that she would go on to endure 11 surgeries. For the next 2 months, she remained in the hospital, fighting for her life in critical condition. Though she ultimately survived, the attack left her physically and emotionally scarred in ways that would never fully heal. Meanwhile, Gary was taken into custody that same Friday morning. Authorities arrested him at the scene.
Don't fucking move!
Ain't nobody moving.
I got him. You got him?
Ain't nobody moving.
Put your hand behind your back.
And he has remained in custody ever since. The brutal nature of the incident stunned even seasoned investigators. As the details emerged, it became clear this was not an isolated outburst, but the tragic culmination of years of unchecked abuse, ignored warnings, and repeated violations of court-ordered protections. At the time of the shooting, investigators confirmed that the circumstances surrounding the attack were still under active investigation. For Bridget, survival came at an unimaginable cost. Her body bore the evidence of what she had endured: 8 bullet wounds, endless pain, and a long road to recovery. After more than 4 years in legal limbo, it seemed as though the case against Gary Blount was nearing its conclusion. In January 2025, he pleaded guilty to charges of attempted murder and throwing a deadly missile as part of a plea agreement negotiated between his defense attorneys and the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. Under the terms of the deal, Gary was to be sentenced to 20 years in prison, with sentencing scheduled before Judge Ellen Sue Venzer on February 3rd. The agreement would have kept him behind bars until he was 75. However, during that sentencing hearing, Bridget made a powerful appearance in court. Standing before the judge, she passionately urged the court to reject the plea deal. "If I must endure this pain for the rest of my life because I dared survive his attempt to kill me, then he should not be spared a similar fate," Bridget said. Her emotional plea struck a chord. Judge Venzer, visibly surprised by the full extent of the case, admitted,
"I was not aware when I accepted the guilty plea that this was the background.
"I was not aware after I accepted the guilty plea that this was the background." As a result, she rejected the 20-year deal. Gary, unwilling to accept a 25-year sentence, was granted permission to withdraw his guilty plea. This decision pushed the case to trial, an outcome that presented a much greater risk for him. Gary now faced more serious charges, including first-degree attempted murder, throwing a deadly missile, and violating a domestic violence injunction. If convicted, he could be sentenced anywhere from 12 years to life in prison. Despite the heightened stakes, Gary chose to fight the charges in court. During the trial, Gary's defense attorney, Jonathan Jordan, portrayed Bridget as the aggressor. He claimed Gary had acted in self-defense, stating, "Mr. Blount believed she was going for that firearm. He's trained in firearms. This is not an attempted murder case. He needed to save his own life, and that's what he did." The defense painted a picture of a man who felt trapped and threatened. In a dramatic twist during closing arguments, the defense introduced a photograph taken at the crime scene showing a purse near Bridget.
When I pushed her to the couch, she said, "Oh, I got something for your ass." She reached for a purse. I believe she was reaching for her firearm.
Although no firearm was ever recovered, the image was used to cast doubt on Bridget's version of events. On February 14th, 2025, after a week-long trial and just a few hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Gary Blount was found not guilty of both first-degree attempted murder and firing a deadly missile.
The defendant's not guilty, so Savio Michael Lanley for a person."
The decision landed like a gut punch. While the defense celebrated, with Jordan declaring, "At the end of the day, justice was served. The jury heard the truth and they sided with the truth," Bridget was left devastated. She had survived a brutal shooting, endured years of abuse, and now watched her attacker walk free from the most serious charges. Though acquitted, Gary Blount's legal troubles were not over. Court records revealed a troubling history: 7 previous arrests in South Florida on charges ranging from kidnapping and aggravated stalking to domestic battery and attempted murder. Most of those charges had been dropped. Now, Gary faced a separate misdemeanor battery charge in Broward County, tied to a prior argument with Bridget. He was transferred to Broward County to address this case, and his attorneys confirmed he would appear in court there before being released. Meanwhile, Bridget, still reeling from the verdict, vowed not to give up. "This is why women can't come forward," she said. "It feels like the system doesn't have your back. I'm just in shock."
Nobody's changed forever. Forever. This is why women can't come forward. I feel like the system don't have your back.
What are your thoughts about this twisted and heartbreaking story? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you are new to the channel and like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time.